going to read a key paragraph from Vahe Gregorian's column on Sunday about the Chiefs, the nickname, and why the topic has moved to the front burner. Quote, "So the crux of the challenge for the franchise and the community going forward will be to honestly assess to what degree the name is inherently divisive and accordingly, if it feasibly can be uncoupled from the behavior it evokes." Close quote. Vahe spent some time on SportsBeat KC talking about the column, how it came about, and the reaction to it. It's Monday, July 13th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. After a break, we'll take you to last night's press conference after Sporting KC's heartbreaking loss to Minnesota in the MLS's back tournament. Sporting surrendered 2 goals in stoppage time and fell 2-1. You'll hear from Coach Peter Vermes. But first, here's Vahe Gregorian. Well, one thing we like to do, Vahe, once in a while, is to talk about how stories come together. Columns, stories come together. And yours that appeared in Sunday's Star, that was posted online Friday, seems like a good one to talk about how it came together and what was your motivation for writing it. If I had a copy of the paper with me, I would have the headline, but I don't. But it was about the topic that we discussed last Wednesday on the podcast. Because of what the Washington Redskins have decided. In fact, they decided today to drop the name Redskins, and there have been statements by other teams that have Native American nicknames. Anyway, how it all plays in with the Chiefs and where are the Chiefs on this? And I should say before I stop talking and let you talk here, that it occurred to me this morning that the Chiefs are the one team that really hasn't put out a statement on their nickname. We've obviously heard from the Redskins. The Atlanta Braves made a statement last night. The Chicago Blackhawks, Cleveland Indians have also made statements. Haven't heard from the Chiefs yet, and I wonder if they believe one's not necessary or. But I think in your column, which I thoroughly enjoyed, that it is an issue with some people, the name, the imagery. And so let's just go back to where I started. How did it come about, and why did you do it?
Well, thanks for asking, Blair. And I think as this stuff emerged with the Washington team, I've actually come to a point where I pretty much learned not to say the name just because of our style, but it's probably bears saying as we talk about its eradication.
We haven't used it in the newspaper, in the Star, in, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years? I don't know. Certainly
since I've been here in 2013, it was sort of one of the first things handed in the Star 101 memo. But anyway, be that as it may, so once that review kind of came up, I think probably as many of these ideas come to us, we end up kicking it around a little bit in here. I think we talked about by our Monday morning meeting last week, it was a big topic for us. We were just all sort of talking it through, the sports staff meeting. And then by Wednesday of that week, we did the podcast. I was trying to think about various ways to pursue what I wanted to say, but I didn't really quite know what I wanted to say. I wanted to keep thinking about it, and mostly I wanted to reach out. And I think our podcast with Sam Mellinger, the three of us, I thought we had a really honest, candid discussion that probably wasn't much different than it would have been if we weren't recording it. I thought it was... And I like to think most of ours are like that.
I agree.
I think it was us working through what we were trying to think about all this and trying to stretch our minds, understanding we don't really understand a lot of aspects of it. So the more I thought about that, the more I knew some other angles of pursuit we had on some phone calls, so I pursued other angles and ended up speaking with a few different people that led me to speaking with Bob Prue from the Kansas City Indian Center, which has not been a resource that has been engaged with the Chiefs very much, or in fact, often talking to the media over the last few years. They have felt either misunderstood or put to the side. So I found Bob to be very eloquent, to me very candid, very informed, and the more I spoke with him, I'll try to make a long story short here, I just felt like it was telling me that what I needed to try to write was something trying to appeal to people to listen to the voices of those in pain. And more than anything else, as you know, luckily I had the latitude to do with the column. I thought that was what I needed to stress, and I really wanted to try to take a gentle approach instead of some kind of sledgehammer or blowtorch to it. We can talk a little bit about the feedback, obviously, after this, but I really wanted to make it like, okay, let's try to all have open minds, open hearts right now as we consider this through sort of the new filters of our evolving society. And I do know this about you. I don't know explicitly this about you, but I know this about me and you in a general way. I think we both feel like if we're not growing, we're not, really living, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're
if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, right. I mean, so I think I hardly would say I have real answers, but I'd like to think I'm getting closer to the questions, and that's sort of what I wanted this to get at.
I thought it did in a profound way. You referred to and I also did the conversation we had last Wednesday. Absent from that conversation was anybody who who's a Native American. It was,
right.
Just three guys that worked for the Star gabbing about this, and nobody who represented a tribe. But you did speak to folks and let them be heard on this. Sam made the point a couple of times in our podcast last week that even within the Native American community, there's not full agreement on these issues or any issues really. Why should there be? Why would there be? Right.
Right.
There's not agreement on any with any subgroup. But there's been enough. There certainly has been enough feeling about this topic that change is happening.
Yeah.
And again, I'll repeat it today that the Washington football team decided to drop the name Redskins.
Yeah.
And the Atlanta Braves put out an announcement. I was watching the Sporting KC game last night, and on the crawl, they made mention of the Braves' letter to season ticket holders that they're going to keep the name Atlanta Braves, but they're going to take a look at the chop. The Braves popularized. And again, other teams with those nicknames, Native American nicknames, are taking a look at what they're doing. Either maybe not with the nicknames, although with Cleveland it is. I think the Blackhawks have said they're planning on keeping the Blackhawks. But again, it's the imagery, so I'm reading some of the reaction to your column on social media, and Lord knows we've got to we can't let that guide our feeling or emotions about a story. But one thing that angered me about some of the reaction that I read, and this was true also of the podcast from last week that got posted on Facebook and social media, I gathered from some of the reaction that people didn't either hear the podcast or read the column. They were responding to a headline.
Yeah.
And and that just I just shook my head and I got that feeling also of from your column.
Yeah,
when it was where it was posted.
I did feel like that, and it's funny. This morning there was a very explicit exchange, not nasty exactly, but the guy was condemning the column but with terminology that suggested he hadn't read it, and I just said, excuse me, have you actually read the column? And he goes, no, I only had to read the headline, or I think he called it the title, and I started to continue to respond, and I just sort of thought, well, the only way I'm really going to respond is probably a little too snarky. I don't really need to be snarky with this guy. I think he kind of made my point for me, but look, that is a complication of this, and it's also a reflection, though, of a certain mindset. First of all, I don't begrudge anybody how they look at it, right? That's your view is your view. But I do think, when the question is asked, can we stop and listen and just reset, listen through as if you're starting over, and you don't read it at all, and it kind of gets at the point, maybe make it itself. The other thing I'd say, too, about some of the vocal and really angry, and responses, it was so fast and so kind of blunt and harsh. It suggested to me that those were coming from voices that are dug in. And again, fine if you want to be dug in. But I think that the hope I had in this was probably you're not going to reach people who reflexively think no matter what, they're not going to look at their position, right? That's just, if that's your reflex, that's just how it is. But I do think many people just, care about others or care about growing or care about, looking at things a new way. I'm not disparaging those who look at it the way they do with firm set of way of looking at things. But I think there's plenty of people like that. And honestly, for all the sort of angry feedback, I found plenty to feel encouraged by with that. Sort of a little better ratio of that in emails, probably, certainly 2/3 or more kind of angry and just, argumentative. But really a fair amount of people just, kicking it around, right? Not really disagreeing with anything. And I want to say one last thing before I stop on this ridiculous stream of consciousness. But, one of the things that really came out of our conversation last week with you, Sam, and me was I started getting this thought like, the heart of the question is something you referred to a little bit earlier. It's not really the name in itself. It's, can you decouple the name from the way that imagery is appropriated? That certainly a representative number of people, whatever that percentage is, I don't know how to measure that. There's different ways to measure that, but we've certainly heard from voices giving good reason for their hurt. Can you separate them in a meaningful enough way that the name is the name and the name is good and all that? I don't really have an answer to that. You asked the question as we started that. I like how you framed it in our podcast last week. You sort of planted some ground as like, let's talk about this and see how we feel after we talk about it. And I think one of those points was the name itself.
Right.
And I feel like all three of us came out of there, at least that's my recollection, that we thought, I don't quite know, I don't see that the name has to be changed in and of itself. I guess I've heard that a little differently in listening to some more of these people. There is a sense that, Chiefs is an honorary position and of a people that were systematically, whatever awful term you want to put to it.
Whatever verb you want to use, none of which are good.
None of which are good. But I'm still in sort of this funny neutral limbo spot on that question, because I think there's things you can do with the name that you can preserve the name if again, upon listening to enough people, talking to enough people, you can come to a point of understanding how you can separate it from those things.
On that note, you got one suggestion, I recall, the Fire Chiefs.
Yeah. And our friend Derek Gould in St. Louis at the Post-Dispatch noted, I think that one of the Cardinals minor league teams had gone from the Peoria Chiefs to the Fire Chiefs. Made a little branding tweak.
Yeah. A little tweak that went a long way in logo and imagery, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know, Blair. I mean, I had an exchange with Sam Mellinger last week. We were talking about people we were talking to and just kicking this around as all of us do. And I told Sam it is a lot to process, but isn't it a cool challenge to kind of try to just really look at it? And I think I'd hope that's what we would all try to accomplish. I certainly need to grow and learn more.
I hope that the people who took the time to respond, one way or the other, for your column and anything else that we write. I know that we had an op-ed piece last week about it as well, and I believe Sam is going to tackle the subject. Sam Mellinger is going to tackle the subject this week as well. That they bring a curious mind to it. You've used the term and you've used it often, and I know exactly what you mean when people are dug in on their positions, and I get that, and we're all dug in on some positions for sure.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't prevent. I don't think it should prevent. A curious mind, people wanting to explore a little bit of why people think this way, why people that you're dug in against feel the way that they do.
Yeah.
And is there some empathy there?
Yeah. I like, and look, the flip side of that, I've thought about this too. I'm trying to understand why people, trying to understand that it's not, maybe it goes beyond just, they're dug in to be dug in, right? I'm trying to understand, like, why do you feel so passionately that there's nothing to see here at all to think about? I am trying to understand that. I try to tell readers that everything you input or everything you send us is worth sending us, whether we understand it initially or not. I mean, it becomes part of how you try to process things. So it's, I don't understand that any more fully than I understand the pain.
Right.
I mean, this is our unique position in hoping to, learn about both worlds as much as you can and be respectful of it all.
Well, and I know you, Vahe, I know that you try to respond to everybody who sends you an email or some kind of message. You can't do it on Facebook or Twitter. Although I noticed you were responding to Twitter comments yesterday as well.
Well, I try to look at situations that I thought I could answer in a way that would be useful, right? I mean, I
advance the conversation a little bit.
Yeah,
I think that's what I look at. What Twitter responses, those are to advance conversations.
Yeah, but as you know, it's at our peril that we go into those mentions. I mean, and I think the kids have some term ratioed, where it means you're getting pounded, and I believe I was referred to as being ratioed, but that's okay. I mean, I do think it's probably not healthy, having people so agitated and upset. I don't mean that in itself is good, but I do think some element of that is fostering conversation about it. Some element of that, and that's just among the people that are angry. I mean, I don't think that is the entire group here. I think there have been plenty of people.
Oh, no.
And as our friend Jesse Newell always reminds us, it's only 3% of people are on Twitter anyway, which is convenient when you want to think about all the others that you're sure are on your point of view. But I did feel like I don't have any real strategy on how to respond on Twitter other than where I see a way to offer a useful clarification, or to try to not let someone misrepresent what they haven't probably read, just to chime in a little bit. I don't think it really does any good to fight the fight on there, but I think if you can just say, hey, you may have missed this part, or maybe, just do that and get out. But I've been too immersed in it. I mean,
well, your audience appreciates your immersion into this. As I mentioned, we think Sam's pursuing a story on this later this week. I just don't think this is a story that's going to end anytime soon.
I don't think so either, right? We're probably going to see. I'd be stunned if the Chiefs don't feel some need to say something, right? Even if they're going to say, well, we respect everything we've heard, but we're not doing anything.
Or at least we're exploring ideas,
I think,
and we respect everyone's opinion. Or
I think it's understood that they're thinking about this, and I don't think we're just saying that to say it. I mean, I think we have reason to believe that, and what that means in any tangible form, I don't know, but I think that I'd be very surprised if we go this whole week and don't see some sort of Chiefs response to it all. I think the topic is going to stay with us for a while, and I think it's probably healthy that it will. I think also, even built in, Blair, like I don't know what I didn't get a chance to see what the plan for Washington is, like, when, how, what.
Well, it's going to tell you what, we think there'll be a season pretty soon, and training camp begins supposedly next week, and there might be a couple exhibition games in August. They're going to need to put some logo on their helmet.
Yeah, maybe they'll be like whatever that greeting was when the Dallas Texans came here initially, the Washington somethings while they wait.
Right.
I don't know. That'll be really interesting. But I guess my point on that also is, I think we got reason to think Washington had been talking about this a little longer than just the last few weeks, right?
No doubt.
I'm not sure how far back any new discussions have gone with the Chiefs. We don't even fully know what dimension that occupies right now. So it could be it takes more of a running jump for them if they even do decide to address it, do something with it. But probably it's no simple thing. And again, though, I just think it gets back to that one question of brand, what you stand for, what the name inherently transmits versus what you can do with it.
All right, that's a good final thought, Vahe. Hey, did you watch Sporting KC last night?
Caught a bit of low light, some of the low lights.
Those would have occurred in the last 20 minutes or so, especially extra time. And we're going to hear, after a break, we're going to hear from Peter Vermes, who spoke to the Sporting Kansas City's 2-1 loss to Minnesota in the MLS's back tournament. An excruciating loss for the home 11, the first team from Kansas City to suit up and play in a contest since we were all pushed inside by COVID 4 months ago. So we'll be right back. Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
I think Beast probably said it best. We had control of the game. We had some good chances. We should have probably put a second, maybe even a third away. We didn't. We allowed them in the game. We made some bad decisions. Unfortunately, what happens is you lose a goalkeeper. You have to take now a player off to replace for a goalkeeper. It kind of changed things around quite a bit. It just changed the game. So I think, there's a lot of good stuff from the game for us. But at the same time, unfortunately, we didn't close it out. So we can play. We'll get better from this game, and we just gotta learn from it and move on to the next one.
Next question will go to Jonathan Segal. Jonathan, your line is open.
Peter, what did you make of the red card, and how do you think it impacted the game tonight?
Yeah, it's a red card from the rules. It's a red card. It definitely changed the game in a lot of ways. Look, we haven't played a game for 127 days, and now you're asking the guys that have just come down into heat. They haven't played any games, come into heat, and now be down down a man for quite some time in the game. We weren't ready for it, and like I said, it changed things in that when the goalkeeper has to go out, and now you got to take a player off, put a goalkeeper on. Now your subs are definitely changed as well, and it was hard. It was hard for the guys to to find themselves at that moment. I think we tried to do a good job of closing out the game as much as we can. We got it to about, 80 some minutes. But we just couldn't hold on.
Next question to Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Soren, your line is open.
Peter, I apologize. I had trouble getting the link, so if this was already asked, I'm sorry for being repetitive. But can you tell me what your thought process was as far as substitutions there in the second half, particularly when the red card came up and with the extra substitutions that were available? Did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah,
making more subs.
Yeah, the Johnny sub was, we were thinking that we're going to probably have to change both their wingers because they were going to be under a lot of strain and stress in the game. We just felt that we'd find a lot of the game there, and they'd have to cover a lot of ground. So that was to be expected. Problem is that right after that, we were probably going to make another sub, And then next thing you know, Timmy gets thrown out. And so the problem with that is now you got to sub the goalkeeper in, but you also got to take a player off to do that. And that kind of changed everything around quite a bit. The guys were, they were tired at that moment. And what happened was because we only were able to make one, we weren't only able to, but I only wanted to do one at that moment to kind of settle the team down with the goalkeeper. What it did was it left us with one last sub, and we had to, if we're going to put three, we're going to put three on. And I just felt that we need to get fresh legs, and I didn't want to push those other guys. I still think it was the right decision. I have all the confidence in the world the rest of those guys can play and do the job. It's just, we should have put the game away a lot earlier and not have been in that position.
And as a follow-up, last year you kind of had some problems, finishing things. I know you had a lot of injuries and there was constant turnover. I'm not trying to, get you to go back and explain everything that happened last year, but any sense that there was like, oh, here we go again, type of, moping after this, the way it ended?
No, not at all. It's more of the fact that we could have, we are very well in control of the game. 1, 2 is, it's the first game back, I said, after 127 days. And then have to go down a man and try to hold on from there was just a little difficult for the guys when we're already not game fit yet. So we're just going to have to build from here from a physical perspective.
Next question will go to Sean Goodwin from the Kansas City Star. Sean, your line is open.
Hey, Peter. Up until the red card, you guys still finished 62% possession. You outshot them. Were you pleased with how you guys played and dominated that game, really, up until the last 20 minutes or so?
I was. I just was a little bit disappointed in the fact that we couldn't finish off get a second goal. We should have. We had chances. We just didn't. We didn't take them well enough, and obviously it came back to haunt us at the end of the game. And that's what happens in games like this sometimes. You play well, you own the game, and all of a sudden you have a couple moments, and next thing you know, the game's against you.
Next question will go to Tyler Jones. Tyler, your line is open.
Hey, Peter, Tyler Jones here. How different was it for you and your team to adjust to no crowd there and not be able to feed off that crowd noise?
Well, it definitely is a different environment. It's a little surrealistic, if you will. It feels a lot like a MLS preseason game when you don't really have much of a crowd there. It feels very similar. I think there's no doubt that that's a big part of the environment. But look, everybody's got to play with it right now, and the best thing is that at least we're on the field at the moment.
Next question will go to Daniel Sperry with MLSsoccer.com. Daniel, your line is open.
Hey, Peter. Was just curious. There was a couple of moments there where I think Gadi Kinda and Gerso both had a chance to maybe take a few extra touches with a lot of space in front of them. Final third, sometimes it just seemed like the final product wasn't completely there. You chalk that up to the long layoff? Is that something that you're hoping to see more from the guys?
I guess you could say yes to that question. But again, we had good opportunities. Whether you haven't played a lot of games or not, you always want to try and finish those. And unfortunately, we didn't today. And they found their way back into the game. So you got to credit Minnesota. They found their way back in. And for us, we just had some, as you put it, we had some really good opportunities and we didn't. And so it was a difference in the game.
That will do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Savannah Smith, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. Thanks to Vahe Gregorian for stopping by and talking about his column that can be found in the show notes and also on kansascity.com. Hey, earlier in the episode, you heard me talk about the Sports Pass offer. It still stands and still a good one. $30 for a year's worth of sports coverage, and that includes a sports extra that comes with the e-edition. There are more than 20 additional pages of national sports coverage today. But here's an even better offer. Buy the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage. The details can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. That's account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Tuesday with another episode.